Hey guys, today we are going to be doing a technique called faux agate. And agate is a stone like this. It's a type of marble. And what I recommend doing is, if you want to do this technique, first of all, always have samples. I just go on Google and I found a bunch of pictures of agate. I also have a bookend that was made out of agate to use, because you just want to kind of keep in line with the real flow and the real movement of the actual stone. So what I'm going to be working on today is an IKEA lac table, straight out of the box, $7.99, and it comes in a white, kind of like a satin finish, so it's going to work just fine for this technique. I don't even have to paint it. But if you're going to be painting, I recommend using the lightest color in the agate. So in this case, I'm just going to keep it white. And I'm going to be using a latex glaze. I've got the Ralph Lauren latex glaze here, and I'm mixing with it 1 part regular navy blue eggshell like wall paint. I use Ben Moore Hail Navy for my color, and 2 parts of the glaze. And you're going to want to also have on hand a couple rags, a cup of water to rinse your brushes with. I also like to sometimes add a little bit of darkness or lightness to the agate. So I just took 2 squirts of just white and black artist paints. And also I'm using a softening brush, and I have a regular paintbrush to apply with, and then I just have a random bunch of smaller paintbrushes for touch-ups and also to kind of get different lines in there, and a small little sea sponge. And then for your actual brush and the way to make this, just get pieces of cardboard. I have a whole bunch of different sizes here, and you just want to make sure they have kind of a rip-torn edge, but really you're going to want tiny ones, medium size, all depending upon the size of the surface you're doing. You can go and just do the whole surface if you're up for it, but it's really a lot easier if you tape out the surface into sections. So in this case, I taped it into quarters, and I did something bad. I do not ever recommend doing it, but I had to use Scotch tape because I couldn't find my painter's tape. And I tested the surface, and in this case, since it's like a laminate, it's going to work just fine. But in most cases, if you have a painted surface, do not use Scotch tape. Don't be impatient. Buy your painter's tape at the paint store. And buy one that is also for delicate surfaces, because you will not pull up your base coat that way. And in this case though, I tested it, it's working, so we're just going to go for it. So to start, get your glaze, and you're going to brush it over the area you want to do this to. Just cover the whole surface. If you're doing a bigger area, you could use a roller. I plan on actually doing this to my entry wall. And I think I'm going to have to do that in sections because the glaze dries pretty quickly, and once it's dry, it's really hard to work with, and you're kind of stuck with your brush strokes and your roller marks. So kind of figure out what the biggest area you could work with is and go for that. And another tip would be, when you're taking off, using larger pieces of cardboard to remove so it goes faster. All right, I'm going to start with a piece of cardboard, ripped. And you're going to want to kind of go into it and just make a squiggly, kind of like a very much like malachite design. And then you're going to kind of keep going, following the outside edge. And if you go over your edge like I just did, have your wet rag on hand to clean it up. That's the problem too with Scotch tape. It's so tiny you can't even see where your edges are. Now for the center, I want to do something where I add a little bit of a darker color. So I'm going to take a paintbrush and I'm going to put just a little bit of black paint into the start of this next area I'm going to pull. And I'm going to kind of following that inside edge again. It gets a little tough in these tight spots. Pull it right through. And that gives it that little bit of a darker black vein there. And it's going to get tinier and tinier here. So what I recommend doing is you could either use a paintbrush, but you could also take that sea sponge and soften it up, because sometimes, if you notice with agate, it gets these dark centers. So just kind of sponge that out, and then you could take that darker, a little black into your blue, and just stipple that on. And using your softening brush, feather it out. And then just keep going with the other areas that you have to finish. hard on the edges here. And you could even start a new direction too. Kind of come up to where we're working here. Get a smaller piece. And I'm going to put a little bit more black into that starting area again and pull the black through. And then for this here area here, let's go a little bit larger. And I'm going to kind of meet right up to this line again. And then take that original line here and just soften it up by blending it in. And then if you have like this area here, I'm just going to kind of fade it out a little bit. I'm going to take my rag. This is where you may clean up any mistakes you've made, like this, there's a little bit of glaze that came over the edge, which is no big deal because we just kind of wipe that off. And we could just take the softening brush and brush it off, or just even take the rag and just stipple it off and brush it down. I'm going to brush this kind of out toward the center of it, fan it out. And then I have two sections that are finished now. So I'm going to pull the tape and I'm going to wipe up any little spots that bled through. That's the other problem with Scotch tape. It sticks really well and it's really hard to remove sometimes. But once these two areas are dry, I can just go right in and finish my other two sections. And when that's finished, I'm going to let it dry completely and then put a top coat of like 2 to 3 coats of a high gloss polyurethane onto the piece to give it a shine like real stone. And I did 2 little boo-boos here when I pulled, so I'm going to very carefully pull that back. And try to lift lightly to let go. And if you still have the spots like I do, I'm going to take a tiny little bit of glaze on a very fine brush and just kind of lightly brush it in, fade it out. But it's okay, because even like the stones in some places are going to have a little bit of irregularities, and they even have some splattering, so you could even take, like in this case, I'll take a toothbrush, and you could just put it in water first to get it wet, put a little bit of glaze on it, pat off the extra, and you could even do a very fine speckling, kind of give it a little bit more depth. And that's it. I'm going to finish up the other 2 pieces and then I'll have a tabletop to show you guys. Okay, it has been a few hours now because I had to wait for this to dry and now the sun's actually out. But this is the finished tabletop right here. I waited about an hour and a half for the other sections to dry, and I even used a hairdryer to make it go a little quicker. But I just let it dry and taped out the dry sections, did the other 2, and I did have a little bit of paint that pulled, so I just touched into it with the colors that, you know, the navy or the black or the white. And once this is completely dry, I'll finish by doing the edges and the legs. And then once that's all dry, putting some polyurethane on it. But this finish is super easy to do, and you could do it to anything you could paint basically, like a box, a lamp, a wall, tabletop, anything. So if there's any other finishes you guys want to see, just shoot me an email at Danika@Herrick.com, or stop by and visit my blog Gorgeous Shiny Things at www.danikaherrick.com. And that's it for now, and I'll be back with some other stuff. Thanks!